you are no longer a minister of state. And so there's no way the president can say that he is reassigning those persons. So I am saying, on the authority of the Constitution, that those persons appointed have been revoked by the president. But the Constitution mandates him to reappoint them. But that reappointment must be subject to the parliamentary scrutiny of this House. So we are demanding that those 5 ministers that he supposedly has reassigned, they must be subjected to parliamentary vetting. That is the procedure. Those 5 ministers cannot escape parliamentary scrutiny because he used the phrase, they have been relieved of their post with immediate effect. Once the publication has been pushed out, they have exited office. So the presidency cannot, by any stretch of imagination of the Constitution, purport to reassign those ministers of state. They were no longer ministers of state after the pen has been applied to the letter revoking the appointment.
That's Roxy Nelson Dapiamepo making the argument and making it very strongly on the floor of Parliament. Andy Apiakubi is a Santia Kim South Member of Parliament. He's joined us this evening for a conversation. Ms. Apiakubi, many thanks for joining us this evening here on Hot Edition. You heard your colleague, Roxy Nelson Dapiamepo, make the argument on the floor of Parliament. Very cogent argument he puts forth, you'd agree?
Yes, I heard a bit of his argument. These are trivial matters of procedural breach. I agree with him when he says that the person so disappointed cannot be transferred to the new position. I agree with him because it's a procedural error. Nevertheless, I think it sends a clear intention of the president to continue to engage them into new positions. And I believe that...
Ms. Abiakubi, you'd have to, speak up a bit for us so that we can hear the clarity of your submission. You say these are trivial matters of procedural matters.
Right.
The content of the president's letter begs to say otherwise.
Yeah, the content indicates that these people have been disengaged. And have been disengaged and they have to be re-engaged. Then they need to go through a procedure for engagement. So I kind of agree with him as he makes the submission that persons so disengaged ought to start again through the process. I kind of agree with him. But except that when president gives intention to retain them in different positions, we need to just appreciate the president's position and understand that they will go through re-engagement.
How do you appreciate the president's position in the face of the law? And I'm going to quote perhaps verbatim again the second paragraph of the president's letter announcing this ministerial reshuffle. And it reads that the president personally expressed his sincere appreciation directly to each of the ministers and deputy ministers who have exited government for their commitment, competence, dedication, and hard work in office, which helped in the realization of government's mandate to the Ghanaian people over the last 7 years, and wished each of them well in their future endeavors. If anything is to go by, these are words used expressly whenever the president relieves anybody of whatever position that they hold. He used it when he accepted the resignation of Madam Cecilia Dapa and other ministers of state who at some point in time had to leave their respective positions. And so how then can we make the argument that, yes, the president might have meant a reshuffle when he essentially relieved them of their duties and thanked them for their years of service?
Yeah, I agree with you that the earlier paragraph suggested that people have been discharged and discharged totally, except that some of them in the later paragraphs, there were indications of president wanting to retain them in different positions. I agree with the submission of my colleague that procedurally we have breached the intent, and therefore we need to probably amend by doing what is right. People who have been disengaged can be re-engaged, and therefore go through the procedure to get them re-engaged again. It is not a very serious breach, but be it as it is, and because Parliament is Parliament, and what Parliament does is what Parliament will do, I believe that these other ministers could be re-engaged and go through the same process all over again. I think that to make matters, to let sleeping dogs lie, we will just take them through the process again, and that will be fine.
Which is the coming to the vetting committee and undergoing the entire process by itself?
Yes, except that vetting is a term of art as per the ruling of the Supreme Court, and therefore when they come and they are seen to have gone through vetting and there's no need for another round of vetting, Parliament can design a way of endorsing them as having been vetted again.
Let me hold you on the line briefly. We've been joined by your colleague Roxy Nelson Dapemeko, who made the argument on the floor. Mr. Dapemeko, many thanks for joining us this evening. So Andy Apiakubi says he agrees with you on the arguments that you've made. It's a matter of a minor procedural error which has been occasioned by the president. And so as much as he agrees with you, he believes that Parliament as a house should be finding a way through which they can approve of these ministers without having to go through the vetting process proper to get them to begin work?
Well, if you catch me rightly, I said that
there's a procedure for vetting.
Mr. Dapemeko, I'll just ask you, Andy Apiakubi wants to properly phrase exactly what he's saying so you can respond. Mr. Apiakubi, please go ahead.
I said that, pursuant to the procedural brief, Parliament may also design another form of endorsement rather than going through the rigorous questioning and answering.
Right.
And because vetting by the Supreme Court pronouncement is a term of art, so it's Parliament that determines
in the manner in which they will decide to do that.
Yes, so it is possible for Parliament to endorse them as they have been because they have previously been vetted and all that, and that will also constitute vetting all the same. So I'm saying that yes, procedurally there has been a breach, but we will find, Parliament can find a better way
to deal with it
without necessarily going through
the rigorous process. Let me bring in Mr. Dapemeko now. You've heard him explain the position he holds and agreeing with you. Is this something that you're willing to consider rather than the Supreme Court route you're opting for?
Now, his concession to my position is immaterial insofar as the presidency remains adamant. And let me point this out. Just last week, the president released another public message indicating that some 20 municipal and district chief executives have been relieved of their positions pursuant to the constitutional provision in Article 243 and in the substantive legislative enactment pursuant to Section 20 of that law. In making reference to the law in the statement, there was another major goof. Instead of referring to the Local Governance Act, Act 936 of 2016, Mr. Eugene Ahin referred to Local Government Act 2014. As a republic, we have no such law. And he hasn't had the sense of humility to amend that statement. So as we speak, the recourse to the law pursuant to which the revocation of the office of those DCs were terminated remain a certain strange alien local government act of 2014, a certain non-existent legislation. So what is happening at the presidency is not a matter of accident. It appears that the lawyers around the president are embarrassing him. And I feel sad that the president's clear intention is to revoke the appointment of some ministers and see them off. Then his other intention was to realign some serving ministers and shift them from their positions, which is what is done before.
Mm.
Then finally appoint some fresh legs to come and support. In communicating this, then you embarrass the president this way. You see, it's not a mere procedural breach. In 1997, J.J. Rawlings was put through this sort of thing. When he
Unfortunately, it does appear we might have lost Dapiamekpo, the Honorable Dapiamekpo on the telephone line. Mr. Apiakubi, I'll just come back to you on that argument he makes about what appears to be a trajectory or a path upon which the lawyers around the president and what he believes are errors that are being made which embarrass the president. Is this a concern that you would share, considering the latest argument he's making reference to the local government law of 2014, which has been amended and replaced by that of 2016. And now we're seeing this minor procedural breach as you've described it. Is there a cause for concern in terms of the legislative responses that we should, or the legal responses we should be seeing from the president?
Well, I have seen the letter in the social media, but the letter was not authored by any lawyer in the presidency. I'm sure the person who authored the letter is not a lawyer. So,
but considering that these are matters of law, and if anybody is to be seen to be upholding the laws of the country, it should be anybody but the president not breaching these said laws and making such mistakes. It's a cause for concern.
Well, definitely it is a mistake. If you refer to
Mr. Dapiamekpo, I'll come to you shortly.
If reference was made to an annulled law, that is a mistake. But like I'm saying, the author of the letter is not a lawyer, and we see all that is required is for us to issue a letter and make reference to the appropriate law, and that rests the argument.
Right.
But I agree with you also when you say that it's a matter of grave concern because these letters are coming from the presidency. So all it is that we have to be careful as we make references to laws that are applicable, not laws that are not applicable.
Right.
Again, communicating from the presidency needs a little bit more of carefulness so that we are not, burying the intentions of the president or any official of the presidency, so that the intentions are clearly made out
right.
For understanding and to avoid this conflict of purposes.
Let me return to you, Mr. Apiakubi. Many thanks. Mr. Dapiamekpo, you were seeking to make the argument when the line dropped, but Andy Apiakubi appears to agree with you that it is concerning that we're having a series, at least two, which you've made specific reference to, coming from the presidency, unriddled with errors that you believe are grave, such that the Supreme Court of Ghana needs to intervene in one of such matters.
Yes, my point is simply that the voice of Eugene Ahi is the voice of the president. So who supervises Eugene Ahi? When Eugene Ahi issues a draft of the statement, I suppose that it ought to be subjected to some other superior review. Because whatever he says is in the name of the president. It is the president that is communicating with us. So anybody who says that the government miscommunicated, let me refer them to the comments made by J.H. Mensah in 1997 in a similar situation, when it was suggested that the former appointees of President George Rawlings during his first term should continue to serve in office because he has won re-election and will continue. They said that in constitutional law, there's nothing like miscommunication. Once you have put out the information, it has to be subjected to the law strictly. And if it is determined that it has breached the Constitution and there are disagreements, then of course the Supreme Court is the appropriate forum for this matter to be determined. So once a revocation has come, it cannot be reversed. Otherwise, then the president can wake up today and say that all the ministerial portfolios that he's revoked in the past, he can simply say that he's reappointing the people and that's it. Once you revoke that appointment, it's a procedure under Article 81 of the Constitution. A revocation is a revocation. Even if it is 1 minute, it is revocation. So if you want to reappoint those people, you have to be subjected to another procedure provided under the Constitution.
Right.
In Article 78 and 79, 1 of the Constitution.
Right. Mr. Apiakubi makes the argument that, yes, he agrees with you on all of these concerns, but Parliament as a body is a master of its own laws.
Yes, I heard him.
And so you should be able to find a way not to go through the entire rigorous process of questioning again for these 5 assigned individuals. How would you respond?
There's a formula for vetting nominees for political office within our constitutional architecture by Parliament. We will not vary it tomorrow because to meet the convenience of some person. The formula is settled. How we vet political appointees is determined. How we vet Supreme Court nominees are determined. How we vet constitutional and statutory independent bodies such as Office of the Special Prosecutor are determined. So, my brother Apiakubi, yes, I say he's pain. It seems that they have been embarrassed as a government. But they have to suffer the consequences.
If there's a push and a rejection by your colleagues on the majority side, you said you go to court. The deputy majority leader has actually called your bluff and asked that you head to the Supreme Court. Is this something you're going to see through? He
didn't call my bluff. He said that he agreed with me, but that it was a procedural impropriety, and I'm saying that procedural impropriety in respect of a breach of the Constitution will have to be acknowledged and remedied. If that is not done, then I have to go to the Supreme Court. So he considers the point that if this matter is not handled carefully, I may have to proceed to the Supreme Court. And look, I take this issue very seriously because it has been a subject of a serious constitutional litigation before, resulting in the decision in J.H. Mensah and Attorney General, which is like a locus classicus in constitutional interpretation in this matter.
Right then, Mr. Dafemeko, we'll leave the conversation. I'm sure when you get onto the floor and the conversation start, we'll know whether or not it is the case that you head to the Supreme Court. Many thanks for speaking to us this evening.
It's my pleasure, Robert.
That's Roxy Nelson Dafemeko. Let me end with Mr. Apiakubi and the last words. Will you as a majority seek to reach out and iron this out as much as possible to avoid all of the noise in courts that could be characterized with a process that should really be simple?
You see, the Supreme Court is inundated with a lot of cases requiring interpretation and, decisions that affect the sanctity of our laws. I think these matters are quite trivial, as I suggested. It is not always the case that you proceed to the Supreme Court on very trivial matters. And I'm saying that when a mistake like that is acknowledged, it is important for us to find the best fit solution. And as I suggested, Parliament is also concerned with the volume of work at the Supreme Court and the need for us to also curtail the flooding of minor cases to the Supreme Court. And therefore, devise a solution that would not require an interpretive decision of the Supreme Court, for which reason I was even suggesting that Parliament being Parliament as it is, and again Parliament having being a master of its own rules, will at any point in time determine what constitutes vetting. And for that matter, Parliament may adopt a new modalities for vetting some of these ministers who have just been vetted at the beginning of this term of office of the president.
Right.
And therefore find, another way of approving the ministers who affected. To save all of us time, to save all of us energy and the like. It is not always necessary to resort to litigation to resolve, issues that could otherwise be resolved without due process of litigation.
Mr. Apiakubi, I appreciate that you could speak to us this evening.
Thank you.
That's Andy Apiakubi's Asante Akim South Member of Parliament speaking to us this evening here on Hot Edition. You're still tuned in to Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. We're coming to you live from our studios here on the John Hammond Street, and we're streaming live on Facebook as well as Twitter, or now X. Let's bring you another story which has been on the front burner over the last 24 hours, having to do with businessman Alfred Woyome, because he's been mounting a spirited defense of embattled Chief State Attorney Samuel Egbeta, who's been disbarred by the General Legal Counsel for taking some 400,000 cedis from the said businessman. Alfred Woyome, at a media briefing today, challenged the General Legal Counsel's decision and denied ever paying any bribe to Samuel Tete to influence him in the infamous 51 million cedis judgment debt case. The former Chief State Attorney was accused by the GLC of taking a 400,000 cedis bribe from the businessman. Although Mr. Woyome admits to transferring the said money, he said he did so on humanitarian grounds.
We have a judgment, and this judgment bars anybody by saying that Alfred Woyome was illegally paid. Bars anybody by saying that he criminally received money. Bars anybody that's saying that Egbeta or any other person that was involved in this transaction from before Skype through the NEC time had done something wrong. If you can remember in the criminal case, Adimamenu came to court and gave evidence. The Safumafo came to court and gave evidence. It would be good for many people to go and look at the evidences they've given. Contrary to that. In one of the Safumafo's evidence, he even explained how I helped the then government in securing certain rooms and certain things and travel together and get a information, which I need not continue about, but that's not the issue we are here. So the issue we are here is that there is this Court of Appeal judgment, which I brought to their notice. Not only this judgment, I'm going to be shopping today to look at certain things. There's another judgment here. Yeah, there it is. Also Kora, Ofoi residing, S. James, Ofoi J.A. So then known. S. Jamepe J.A. and M.M. Ajiman. This is J.A. This is a judgment of the Court of Appeal, which was also 3-0, like the former one, against It was when the sole commissioner, so-called, indicted me when I was not even there, and created the impression that Mr. Woyome was this was.
That's Alfred Woyome there in that interaction, and he's been saying a lot more in relation to this particular matter.
And the government of Ghana, led by His Excellency, the former President, John Mahama, issued a white paper on it. The sole commissioner was supposed to look for judgment issues, and critical issues were looked at. Nobody's was issued with your white paper, but the white paper was issued on me. I mean, my case was ought not to be over there. It was issued. When you look at the law of the white paper, you would have noticed that it was debarring me from.
Martin, Mr. Martin Kebu is a private legal practitioner. Has joined us on the telephone lines for a quick conversation. Mr. Kebu, many thanks for speaking to us. Mr. Woyome has been speaking, says that didn't bribe anybody, did it so on humanitarian grounds, that a 2011 Supreme Court judgment has barred anybody from saying that he, Alfred Woyome, was illegally paid. Your thoughts on this defense has been coming from him barely 24 hours after Mr. Tete was disbarred?
Yeah, Mr. Your name again, is it Mawuena?
Yes, Mawuena here.
Mawuena. I heard Mr. Woyome. You see, look, I'm trying to be very civil, okay, because what he's saying is really it's difficult. You see, so I don't want to use all the negative words, so let me stay away from them. What I can say is that Mr. Woyome should stop talking. I know he has the right to speak freely, free speech and the rest, but he has to also be sensitive to the rest of us Ghanaians. What he's saying is neither here nor there. As we speak now, Mawuena, isn't there a judgment saying he should return the money? How can you say nobody can say he was paid money illegally? Maybe what he can say is that he was not convicted of a crime. But there's a difference. If the money that was paid to him wasn't illegal, why is it that today he's still being chased around? His companies are being looked for left, right, center. Some of his assets were auctioned, and a lot of the debt is yet to be recovered. He shouldn't do that. He should just be straight that, look, the money I was paid wasn't paid under a crime. Yes, that one, yes. That's how come he won the criminal cases. Why is it that he didn't show you the Supreme Court cases? Why didn't he show you the Supreme Court case? The Supreme Court on a review said that he hadn't worked for any money. It was phantom work, and so he should return the money. Mr. Woyome shouldn't do that. As I said, the things he said are very disturbing. I don't want to use negative words, so I think the best I can say is that they are disturbing, and that he can't justify the payment to Mr. Egbeta at all, not anywhere.
He says on humanitarian grounds, because the wife was unwell, he cannot disclose the reason for the sickness, but it was done on humanitarian grounds. And Mr. Tete did not form a part of the state attorneys who were handling his case. That's the defense he's put up.
No. That cannot be allowed at all. It cannot be. It cannot be. Listen, he had a connection with the case. And so why did the General Legal Counsel find him liable? They said it could not be explained. The grounds for the taking of the money were untenable, and so it brought the bar into disrepute. You see, that's why I said Mr. Woyome needn't have spoken. Why is he now the spokesperson for Mr. Egbeta? Why? He shouldn't. It's not necessary. You see, there are some things in life, you just need to, look at all sides of the problem before you decide to speak. This is speaking is unnecessary. He's just creating too much trouble.
Right.
The man is been found liable. If he thinks it's wrong, he can go on appeal. But the moment Woyome himself opens his mouth, then he's now reminding us of everything he's done against us as a country. Yeah, the way he flees this country. With the aid of all the people who did. So he paid ministers, both NDC, MPP. Ministers took money, Obiamwa and co. I keep mentioning that example. Later, Obiamwa said the money that was paid to him was what? Land that he sold to Woyome, etc. There are so many other people. You think, no, the more Woyome speaks, then the more he's,
reminding.
Yes, of the pain. Cattle or break. In English, what's the phrase for it? Like it's just
bruising the old wounds, you'd say.
Yes, he shouldn't do that. So in law, that payment to Mr. Egbeta was wrong. Egbeta had a role in the case. It was totally wrong. So he can't justify it. And the General Legal Counsel was clear that this brings the bar
the legal profession into disrepute. What would you make of arguments by those who say that, yes, the General Legal Counsel may have reached its own conclusion after investigations, but whoever petitioned them is still very unclear, and the final determination of whatever investigations they undertook, disbarring him, was harsh?
No, there is that side. I cannot say harsh because we don't have the full decision yet. So we've not been able to see the extent of the evidence. But what I'll say is that, of course, Mr. Egbeta can appeal. And also when it comes to the judges, the judges that had the case previously, they have been allowed to practice. So I think that rather than begin to criticize the General Legal Council, I want to see the decision. And also Mr. Egbeta can go on appeal. Yes.
And so you would advise, in your opinion, Mr. Awoyome should stay off and not continue to comment on this matter?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in very bad taste. It's in very bad taste. What he did, he's not even ashamed that, he's responsible for even sending the whole government out of office. I remember in 2012, that was in 2016. The Wyoming matter was number one. That was what they say, corruption. So the more he speaks, then the more he even reminds us that one man through his actions. Because the Wyoming matter was a serious campaign issue. So Wyoming should keep quiet. He should keep quiet.
Right, then. Mr. Kwebu, I appreciate that you could speak to us as always.
Your call has been...
As Martin Pebu speaking to us this evening here on Alfred Agbesi Woyome. He says that Mr. Woyome should not continue to speak, but let's hear a bit more from his defense, which he mounted at that press conference earlier today.
And the government of Ghana, led by His Excellency, the former president, John Mahama, issued a white paper on it. The sole commissioner was supposed to look for judgment issues. And critical issues were looked at. Nobody was issued with a white paper, but the white paper was issued on me. My case was ought not to be over there. It was issued. When you look at the law of the white paper, you would have noticed that it was debarring me from public office, politics already for 15 years and so on. I have to stay with that statement for 6 months, according to law, before I could go and appeal. And when I did appeal, I won. It was all set aside. Gentlemen, you understand what I'm saying? 3-0 again. And this same white, sole commissioner was when they gave breath to the so-called Yoko report. The Yoko report that indicted people say ABC and things like that. And what it means generally is that Yoko report entered, which there was not even a written by Apaji, I don't know, concussions. The same Yoko report sought to even indict Yasafuma, and he went to court to stop them on the same issue. That's what I set aside. And that report have been completely annulled, set aside. So there exists not any report called Yoko report, whether interim or not, because this judgment are dealt with that. So on what basis is the Attorney General still tarnishing the image of a person for all this wrong? If you read deeply, you can see that Mr. Egbeta was not handling my file. He has never handled my file. The only time that Mr. Egbeta was sent to court was when there was somebody out and he went to deputize, and even that one, it was after the government wanted a negotiation. Every payment that was done was by court order, and the decision was taken in the highest arm of government. What I'm talking about is that from the castle, every letter and every decision was copied to the then president, chief of staff, and other people, all people. How then can just a chief state attorney and be brave to take a decision? In some of the meetings, he was not even there.
That's businessman Alfred Agbesi Woyome there in his news conference earlier today. You're here on Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7, and we're taking you away from this now because the death toll in the Nkoko bypass accident is now 5, according to hospital sources. The Honi Family Hospital confirmed the death from the Nkoko bypass accident, where 4 male pupils and a female teacher are believed to have passed on. A number of pupils with varied degrees of injuries are still on admission at the Holy Family and the Ejakwa hospitals, and the Kwewu East Municipal Chief Executive Yawu Swado, he's directed a closure of the bypass, which has become synonymous with road accident. He's been speaking after the rather horrific accident 24 hours on.
4 here, yeah, the total death 5. A teacher died, so adult. Then the 4 children. Then 1 at Ajakwa. So as we're saying, 5. Yeah. Junction where they turn. I think it's a junction that immediately we've taken a decision to close because the place is dangerous. So my executives have resolved that branch, we must block it.
As Yao Owusuado is the Municipal Chief Executive for Kwewu East. Let's speak to my colleague Yvonne Nikwe, who's been following up on this for us. Yvonne, talk to us a bit more about this bypass, which has been closed now, as announced by the Municipal Chief Executive. How and why did they allow this to continue until at least 5 people died before a decision could be taken?
Okay, so Mawuena, the section of the road that have been closed by the Kwewu West Municipal Assembly is an unapproved route that several of the drivers use as a U-turn to join or leave the dual carriage road that links Accra to Kumasi. So yesterday, the school bus driver on that unapproved route, while the Nissan vehicle of the DC from the Ashanti region was on the dual carriage road. Narrated says that the DC vehicle was overspeeding as it crossed the school bus, resulting in the accident losing 5 lives, 4 pupils and a teacher. So that is the reason why the DC believes that that particular unapproved route should be closed to ensure that people who want to do U-turn will have to move a longer way to do it. Now, the residents of the area are also arguing that the original plan of the road is to add an intentional U-turn and overpass, an end and overpass. But unfortunately, that was not added to, but the road was commissioned for use. But they're thinking that if those 2 rudiments are added up, it means that the road will be safe for road users and as well as for children who cross over to school daily.
Let's return to the accident and the persons who are injured at the hospital and the lives, and even for those who may have lost their little ones, 4 pupils, 4 children having to die in such horrific manner. What's been happening? What's the update in relation to that as well?
It's been a sorrowful sight visiting their families today from morning till late afternoon. A lot of tears from them, both at the family houses and the hospital. And those who are hearing of the news fresh of their death ones, very uncontrollable when men and women cannot take exactly what's been happening to them, especially when you have to wake up and they get your people to school and the teacher, and then you hear the news of their passing away. So it's been a very difficult moment from them taking. For one particular woman whose daughter is a private school teacher, she says that that is her breadwinner, person who takes care of her daily. And so she's at a loss as to what will happen to her in the next few days when she has to lose her daughter in this particular accident. So it's been one of a troubling sight seeing them contain this situation.
Yvonne, many thanks as always for keeping an eye out on this for us. We'll come back to you for updates as to what's happened to the rest of the kids who are still in the hospital. That's my colleague Yvonne Nikwe, who monitors, keeps a close eye on development in the eastern region for us as they happen. You're listening here to Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. It's 16 minutes to the top of the hour. In about a minute or so, the business team will be here with the very latest from the world of business. But the top stories we've been bringing to you this evening here on Hot Edition, amongst many things, the minority is demanding that 5 ministers of state who've been reassigned by President Akufo-Addo in his cabinet reshuffle must be subjected to parliamentary approval as he served notice they would head to the Supreme Court if nothing is done about it. We've been hearing from Andy Appiah-Kubi, who's a Santia Kim MP, and he's been agreeing with the position of Roxy Nelson Dafiamekwo and makes the case strongly that Parliament is a master of its own rules. They need to find a way to go about this. But Roxy Nelson Dafiamekwo, who cites a different instance of mistakes of such sort from the presidency, says one too many, we cannot allow it to stay, and if anything, Parliament must insist on the laid down rules for ministers when they are appointed, which is a question and answer segment, after which they will decide as to whether or not approval should be granted. to these minister designate. And then as well, we've been hearing from businessman Alfred Agbesiwoyome, who's been speaking in relation to the verdicts by the General Legal Counsel on one of the chief state attorneys, Samuel Nekwe Tete, who was found to have received some 400,000 cedis from him deposited into the account of his wife. I mentioned business is here and ready. Mawuena will do that for us right after this. Mawuena is here, ready and waiting with the very latest from the world of business. Mawuena, good evening. Trust that you're well.
Good evening, Mawuena. I'm well. How are you?
Blessed and highly favored as always. What do you have for us in business?
Well, coming up, African Development Bank projects 2.8% growth rate for Ghana in 2024, lowest in West Africa. We have the details coming up shortly. Okay. Thank you for your time in our first story. The African Development Bank is projecting a modest 2.8% growth rate for Ghana in 2024 from the estimated 1.5% forecast in 2023. This will be the lowest in West Africa in 2024. According to its Africa's Macroeconomic Performance and Outlook 2024, the modest growth reflects the ongoing fiscal consolidation and high inflation weighing on household budgets. The forecast by the African Development Bank is in line with that of the government of Ghana. According to AFDB, the ongoing IMF program will impact the private sector and household consumption. Again, the price of goods and services will remain high. In West Africa, Ghana and Nigeria will be the two countries that will grow below the region's average of 4%, with Nigeria's economy expected to expand by 2.9%. Away from that, Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, has advised newly appointed Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, to sustain efforts of Ghana's economic reform program. In a letter congratulating the minister, she urged Dr. Amin Adam to continue with the momentum of the IMF program to achieve economic stability. The following three Business News Desk reports has more. In the letter received by the Finance Ministry, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, assured the fund's commitment to supporting Dr. Amin Adam's new role as Ghana's finance minister. At a critical moment of Ghana's history, Kristalina Georgieva noted how essential Amin Adam's leadership will be in sustaining Ghana's reform efforts and in further extending the current momentum of compelling program performance and gradual economic stabilization. In the letter, Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, extended warm congratulations on Dr. Amin Adam's appointment. Dr. Amin Adam was the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry until his appointment to take over from Ken Ofori-Atta, who served in office as Ghana's Finance Minister for 7 good years. That was a 3 Business News Desk report. In more stories, the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, Samuel Amegaibo, has joined calls for contractors to be vigilant not to fall for election contracts that have no budgetary allocation. He warns contractors to be careful of juicy contracts, especially in an election year. Contractors over the years have locked up their capital in election-promised projects which have no budget allocation.
Around this time where politicians are promising heaven to the electorate to win their votes, you have to be careful as a contractor not to embark on any such project when you don't know the source of funding and whether that has been pre-approved to take place at this juncture, to make sure that we don't fall free and become a prey for politicians to use us to get us to spend our little resources that we have. Some of us even go to the extent of borrowing money to execute these jobs, and then we were found wanting. And the next thing is that we are being chased all over by the banks that helped us to borrow the money to execute this project, and yet the politician then will not be available to render accounts and explain to the public why he lied for you to go and execute such a project.
That was Executive Secretary of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, Samuel Amekaibo, ending business segment on Hot Edition with me, Menu Afo. We have more stories for you, Mawuena. Over to you.
Yeah, it's interesting the argument Mr. Amekaibo makes.
Right.
Don't follow election contracts and then your money will be locked up. But many thanks for the very latest from the world of business. That's my colleague Menu with business for us. And the weekend is here, and so sports is a big deal. Investors and the likes. Emmanuel Andam is here with the very latest from the world of sports as well. Emmanuel, good evening.
Good evening, Mawuena.
Trust that you're well.
I am.
What do you have for us in sports?
Well, Mawuena, today marks a sad day in Ghana football as the body of former Black Star Raphael Dramina was laid to rest earlier today at the Adriano AstroTurf. Now, the president of the Ghana Football Association, Keto Kweku, and ex-Black Stars assistant coach Ibrahim Tanko were present at the funeral and shared their thoughts on the tragic passing of the striker.
Was a player who potentially could be one of the very best in the act of goal scoring. We saw his quality when he was introduced to the Black Stars and played 9 games and scored twice. I remember the day he scored twice, playing alongside the captain of the team, the Baby Jet. So clearly, he was somebody who would have served Ghana for long. But for the fact that he went through that period of challenge, and obviously his life was eventually curtailed, nobody can replace the loss of a life.
I mean, it's an international thing. If you look at Raphael, I mean, almost all the teams that he went, they have these medicals, and almost all of them detect this problem. I think that one should have let him stop, because football is not everything. So it's painful, like you said. I think we have to be very careful.
So those are the voice of GFA President Keto Kweku and former Black Stars assistant coach Ibrahim Tanko. Now let's cross over to Europe, where the Premier League will return this weekend with a couple of interesting fixtures. Now Liverpool will travel to Brentford, Arsenal will travel to Burnley, Spurs will welcome Wolves, Luton Town will take on Man United, and the headline fixture of the weekend will see Manchester City take on Chelsea. Now ahead of Arsenal's game against Burnley, Mikel Arteta says he's expecting an improvement in his squad as a couple of injured players could be making a return to the team.
Well, the update is that some of them have been progressing better than others. We have a training session again today. Some of them they've done a few bits this week, and I'm positive that hopefully we're gonna get a few back for tomorrow.
So that was the voice of Arsenal head coach Mikel Arteta. Now still in England, Man United striker Rasmus Højlund has accounted his good run of form to Manchester United first team coach Ben McCarthy. Let's take a listen to the striker.
World-class guy. He's very nice person. You can always talk with him. And he wants to develop us players. He wants to learn off himself. He wants to make us better players, and he's doing a very good job.
So that was the voice of Manchester United striker Rasmus Højlund. Now, Mawuena, that brings us into the sports news.
Emmanuel, many thanks. What's your favorite team, though?
I'm a Barcelona fan.
Oh man, terrible times for you and Chelsea.
It's quite sad.
Yeah, Madrid is beefing up the squad heavy
that's true.
For the future, and
that's
you
true.
guys don't look great.
We don't have money.
You're making an argument about Lamine. What is it? Lamar, but I'm not sure he's the one for you anyways. Barca is the second team when Messi was there, but he's no longer there, so yeah.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Emmanuel. And the lady who just not disclosed what team she supports because she knows I'm going to give it to her, give her a lot of trouble for it, is Akofa.
Hi, Mawuena.
She's coming
well,
with
I'm
the very
telling
latest.
you that we're not doing that.
From the world of entertainment, Akofa.
Hi.
Some good news for us?
Yes, not so. Yeah, for some camps, yes, but for some camps, not so much.
I know where that's coming from.
Well, let's get into the entertainment news here. The spokesperson for the founder of the Charlotte Street Arts Festival, Mancha Yikwe, Anio Sabute, has refused claims that their copyright suit against rapper Obrafo and producer Hama has been struck out. Now, according to him, the judge only asked them to sue the parties separately.
The case has not been struck out. What happened was that Manchester sued both Obrafo and Hama, not as individual but as a group.
Yeah.
Okay, but then the judge said that you cannot sue that. You cannot do that. So instead of doing a joint suit on their heads, you should rather do individuals.
Okay.
Exactly. So that was the case. So it is on that basis that the judge said Manchester should go back and do the right thing. And but the substantive case itself was never heard at all. So when we came out and we started doing stories on social media about the case has been struck out and all that, I mean, personally, I started laughing because I know how some of these things are often panel. But the substantive matter was not heard at all. I mean, but we disagree with the decision, but I mean, at the end of the day, we also have the opportunity to go back again. Because look, the rules of court say that if you are trying a case of similar nature, even involving 3, 4, 5 or so people, you are at liberty to join them together. And I think there's a reason why the judges say that. It cuts the waste of time, because if it's a similar issue you are dealing with, why don't you all put everything together and come as a group instead of putting them differently? So we'll go back, and yes, Macha will have his right to sue Obrafour separately and come out to separately.
And before I go, the Principal Research Officer at the Copyright Office, Issa Mahama, is encouraging creatives to petition their outfit to help to amicably address intellectual property-related disputes instead of rushing to the court as their first line of action. According to him, it is better for creatives to resolve their issues using mediation. He spoke with Bella Mundi earlier on New Day.
To address such issues, they should always have, if it is joint authorship, they should have joint authorship agreement where everything is spelled out. I'm spending X amount. I'm going to share the cost. I will give you royalties for this.
Yeah.
Then everything is spelled out in the agreement.
But you know that in most cases, these things are not done, especially in the music industry, which is why, you know, Manche is now going back to claim ownership of that line, because his spokesperson said they were young, they were all looking to create, and so it really wasn't about ownership at that time. But now they're realizing it's important, and they've been asking for it for a while.
So even the Act have anticipated such things. So Section 48 of the Copyright Act talks about dispute, how we should address dispute.
Okay.
You can petition the Copyright Office. Then we have mediation. We try to see whether we can solve it amicably.
Oh, before.
If it is not solved, then you can now proceed to court. We always advise that, because you are industry players. You are not enemies. After the case, you may still interact and do business.
Yeah.
So if you are able to solve the distance using the mediation, even media will not hear it, because mediation is always between the parties, and nobody will come out and talk about it.
And that'll be all the entertainment news here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa Mawuena.
Akofa, who doesn't tell anybody else that she does?
I probably don't even have a team that I support.
A lot of singing.
Oh, we've moved from there.
I could actually raise a number of legal arguments from different perspectives when it comes to you singing. The next mentor is this year.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that.
You should.
We'll see about that.
Oh, you want to give us a small rendition?
No, we're not doing that.
All right, listeners, Akofa does great singing, by the way, and so you should check her out on the various social media where she could do a magical reveal for you this weekend. That's my colleague Akofa with the very latest from the world of entertainment, bringing us to the end of this evening's bulletin here on Hot Edition. Trying to read some of the messages that you may have left for us this evening here on Facebook. This one from Emilia Winebunu Anoja says, from Emilia and Asawase, these new appointees will have nothing better to offer us. In fact, they were and are part of the mess we're in now. And that's a message that's been sent through by Emilia. It's pretty much all of the messages so far, and so yeah, that's it from us this evening here on Hot Edition. Sat in for Alfredo Kante, who's back on Monday with a lot more. As I always say on a Fridays, enjoy the weekend, have fun, but do take care of yourself in the process. I am Mawuena Egbeta. Many thanks for listening.